Hey guys, what's up? My name is PBM or Polar Bear Mike. Today I'm going to be doing a patch notes review for patch 4.4. So we can start it off. I'm going to keep this one a little bit short, and I'm not going to try to pronounce this guy's name more than once. So, New God Cernanos, he is a hunter. He has a really cool kit. So his passive is he wields a glaive as a weapon. His basic attacks deal additional damage to all enemies in melee range while he's throwing it. So say you're at a jungle camp and there's 3 minions. If you're hitting the big minion, then if your main auto attack is hitting him, then as he's throwing it, the glaive will kind of cleave the other two as he's about to throw it, and it'll do a little more damage. In his animation, this looks really clean. It'll look a lot more obvious how this works. The bonus damage isn't that much, but anytime you get bonus clear, it's pretty good, right? So he could... this passive is making people think that he might be the first ever viable hunter in the jungle, because he can clear buff so quickly and because he has a lot of CC, as you'll see later on. So, cool passive. His first ability is kind of like a mix between a Chronos 2 and a Shablanque 1. So basically he has these 4 stances, or these 4 seasons he can be in. The first one will give bonus physical lifesteal. That spring, summer will give bonus damage. Autumn will give protection debuff. English is hard. And then the winter one will slow them for 1 second. So the obvious thing about this is, or I should have mentioned, these are on his auto attacks. So he has to hit his auto attacks to get these benefits. The ability costs 0 mana, and it has no cooldown. So you can hit an auto attack, switch seasons, hit an auto attack, switch, hit, switch, blah, blah, blah. So this ability has a really high skill cap. It is so many things in one. It's like a mini Frostbound plus an on her passive plus, a little bit of bonus damage, like a Shablanque 1 plus bonus sustain all in one. The main balancing thing around this is obviously you have to hit all of your auto attacks to take advantage of it, and also it has a high skill cap. You have to understand what situation each season is good in. So, cool ability. His second ability is Bramble Blast. This is probably the ability you will max first on him, I believe. I haven't gotten to play him too much in the PTS, but unfortunately you don't see damage numbers here. But basically the way this works is it's like a line skill shot, and the first enemy it hits will get rooted by the line, and then after they're rooted, the Bramble Blast will kind of explode around them, and it'll deal damage and slow everybody within that range. This gives him really good CC and really good lockdown already between the slow on his auto attack as well as the root slow effect on his Bramble Blast. This, it looked like it was about the size of like a Chiron one, if you've played Chiron before, or, just other hunters, just to give you some sort of guideline. But, yeah, pretty cool ability. Good CC. It makes it good follow-up off of, chain CCing with your support and good lane control, all that good stuff. His third ability is Horn Charge. He charges forward, damaging and crushing through all types of enemies. It's about the same speed as like an Agni Dash, probably a little bit slower than an Agni Dash, but it does a ton of damage. It's like 280 base damage and 90% scaling. So your simple charge, pretty normal escape, but it does a lot of damage if you want to use it offensively. Pretty cool. His ult is one of his coolest things about his kit. He selects an area where the wild hunt will begin. Some quality roleplay right there. After a 1 second casting time, enemies in the area will be damaged and polymorphed into wild boars. Polymorph targets are silenced and disarmed, and polymorph is not affected by diminishing returns. So the last line there is the most important one, because his 2 Bramble Blast is also not affected by diminishing returns because it's a root, and roots aren't affected by DRs. So if you don't know what diminishing returns are, basically if you chain CC one after another, so if you like stun into another stun into another stun, each stun will last shorter than the one that came before it. And this is a mechanic that's in place to prevent people from being CC'd for like 10 seconds in a row. So anytime abilities aren't affected by DRs, it means you can chain your CC a lot longer. So roots, for example, aren't affected by diminishing returns because you still have control of your character and everything during a root. You just can't move, but you can still, cast, you can still auto attack, you could jump away, dash away, all that stuff. So that's not affected by DR. So for example, say you're playing in lane with like a Fafnir, right? And Fafnir stuns, and then you use your Bramble Blast to root them and slow them, and then the stun will last the full duration, the root will last the full duration, and then you could ult them, and the polymorph will last the full duration. So he has a lot of chain CC, and The amount of crowd control in his kit, along with his passive, make people think that he might be a good jungler because he has good gank potential because of his CC, and he also has good camp clear. It would be cool to see a hunter that's viable in jungle. Personally, I don't really see it because ADCs just get so much more farm in the duo lane than they would in jungle, so I don't know why you would have this god get less farm. I think he's still better as a hunter, but anyways, really cool kit. He's probably in his current state viable in multiple roles, maybe even mid lane. So it'll be nice to see how he develops. If you want his numbers, or if you want to play him or test him out, or if you want to see him, I'd recommend going to the Hi-Res TV VOD where they announced him. It might be on YouTube as well for SMITE game on their YouTube, so you can see exactly what all these abilities look like, and you can look at their numbers and all that. But yeah, moving on. Some skins, some pretty cool skins. I think this Loki one is part of a like St. Patrick's Day event. Energy got their championship skin. The skin is sick. You should go to the site and listen to some of the audio clips. It's pretty cool. And then Breezy Chibi Kakalkan as well is a really cool skin. And yeah, blah 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 skins. Moving on, there's some more stuff with the St. Patrick's Day event. Moving on to miscellaneous, this is actually a big change. Fixed an instance where bots could get stuck on towers or terrain. So this works for like Scotty Dog and Changa's Jade Rabbit. If you would send the rabbit back to base, or if you were a Scotty and you were walking out of base, your dog or your rabbit could get stuck on like a tower or at a phoenix or something, or in your base, and then you basically wouldn't have your benefit of them being in your kit. So good bug fix. I think Pompon said he's not sure if they completely got all of the instances where this happened, but sounds like they fixed most of them, which is very good for people who play Scotty and Chunga. Moving on to Bancroft's increased lifesteal on the item. It just makes it a little better for magical ADCs, kind of like mainly like Freya would pick up Bancroft a good bit. It also makes it a little bit better on something like Soul. And then obviously Anubis. Those are like the three I can think of off the top of my head that really benefit from this. But the item doesn't do any additional damage. So if you were like a Zeus player, you probably don't pick this up any more than you used to. It's not bad on Zeus. That's not what I'm saying. Like, the item isn't bad, but I don't think this is like, if you were going a different build before, then that build is probably still better, because this doesn't have any extra damage or anything that you really need. Lifesteal is not that beneficial of a stat. Book of the Dead gets a similar treatment, 20% lifesteal, and decrease the cost by 200. The cost is an interesting thing. It'll be nice to see mages maybe consider getting this in the mid game a little bit more. When you price an item at 3,000, it basically means that you're not going to pick it up until like 5th or 6th item. I think it still is kind of at that spot because it's 2,800 gold, but maybe if you get really far ahead, you choose to buy this instead of like a Book of Thoth or something like that. Going on to Fatalis. So this is the tier 2 of Fatalis. They decrease the attack speed from 20 to 15%. The tier 3 version of Fatalis is 20%. So it just makes the the tier system, having a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 item, it just makes the tier 2 be a little bit worse. I'm going to skip Flickering Ritual for just a second and go to normal Fatalis, Hasten Fatalis. They increase the cost by 150 gold. So Fatalis is still a good item. It just makes you spend a little bit more to build into the powerful effect. I don't think you rush it as early on Hunters. You probably don't get it like third item like you maybe used to rush if you would go like Boots, Transcendence, Fatalis, but you maybe still get it 4th or 5th. Still has a really strong effect, still a good item. Flickering Ritual, increase the cost from 750 to 1,000 gold, so I'm going to skip the whole ritual rant just for the sake of keeping this video a little bit shorter. Rituals are really strong. You can find out if you're confused on why people think they're so OP or whatever. You can check, Twitter or, a Reddit or other conversations with that. But basically, rituals are all extremely powerful. They cost basically what a tier 1 item costs, except a tier 1 item doesn't give you the ability to just insta-win a team fight because the tier 1 item is so strong. And I mean, basically, rituals don't cost you that much. It's like the gold of a tier 1 item, but it can end up being the reason you win a fight, and then that fight can be the reason you win the game, so on and so forth. So nice to see them adjust the rituals. A lot of people have been complaining about rituals. I do think that they are really OP. but I don't want to see... I'd rather see them balance them a little bit. I don't like Combat Blink specifically. I would remove Combat Blink and have a different ritual that is a little cooler, a little more fun to play with and against, but hey, whatever. At least they are adjusting them a little bit. Can't complain about that. Good change. Heartseeker, so this was being built on basically every single jungler that was an assassin in Smite, especially competitive. This item gives you so much damage because it has 10 flat pen. It gives you movement speed, so it's easier to move around, farm, gank, all that stuff. Gives you power, and then it gave you 100% additional scaling, so 100% of your power would be added as damage on your next ability. This item was just so insanely strong in the early game for only 2100 gold. That's fairly cheap as far as jungler items are concerned. You know, the whole mace tree costs more than this, for example, and those items give like, you know, CDR and all that stuff. It was a little bit cheaper than Hydra's, so they bring it more in line with other jungle mid-game items. You probably won't rush this, but you can still get Heartseeker as like a 4th, 5th, 6th item, and it'll still be really strong because it has the same passive. Soulstone, updated the description. Moving on to God changes. Apollo, they nerfed his So Beautiful by 10 points through all, or 10 damage points through all ranks. And then Serenade, they nearly halved the protection from Serenade. The early game procs are pretty similar, as you can see, like 10 to 30 is now just, you know, 10, 15, 20. So you don't really start feeling this nerf until rank 3 of it, where you go from 30 to 20. And then you start really feeling it rank 4 and 5. You go to 40 to 25, and then 50 to 30, where it's almost halved at max rank. So I'm actually not sure why Hyros chose to nerf Apollo. It didn't feel to me that he was that powerful. Like, he was a little bit better than the average hunter, but his kit isn't all that insane. Like, he's really only known for being the best split pusher. Like, he's not the best team fighter. He's not the best to shred tanks. He's not the best boxing hunter. Like, he's just solid in general, and I feel like a god who is just solid isn't really that big of a deal. Like, I feel like he could have been left alone and left untouched, and it wouldn't really be that bad. But anyways, Apollo gets nerfed a little bit. I think they maybe didn't need to do the Serenade change, or they could have just done one of these change. But anyways, Apollo's a lot worse now. He's still okay. His passive is still really strong. His ult still is good for split pushing. Serenade is still good as a peel ability, just a little bit worse if they beads it and then dive you because you have less procs, but whatever. There's the Apollo change. Kuzumbo. So Kuzumbo had a really rough release. Kuzumbo was a very weak Guardian at the start, I would say, and then in patch 4.3, so he was released patch 4.2, he was pretty weak. In patch 4.3, they buffed him, and they made it so that his shell spikes would do, or you could activate it while you were in a crowd control, and it says fix an issue where this ability could not be used in a knockup, so you would be able to use it in stuns and stuff like that, but not when you were knocked up, so they now fix that. You can activate shell spikes in all forms of CC, like you can Shield of Thorns. This is really strong because it means his 2 was previously used as a proactive ability where you would pop it and run at people, and if they hit you, they would get punished for it. But now you can use it reactively where, like, somebody stuns you to set up their mage to do damage on you, and then you can pop your 2 and you reflect a ton of damage back to the mage. So that's pretty strong. Increase the... I guess I'll go through the one first because that's in order. Increase Nene Kappa's attack damage from 25 to 65 all the way up to 35 to 75. This is actually a pretty big deal because on his 1, this is the little minion that he spawns from his 1, and it'll melee attack an enemy god. And normally it gets like 3 to 4 hits off every time you won them. So 10 damage per auto equates to like 30 or 40 damage buff at all ranks. This makes him do a lot more damage on his 1. It also makes the Nene Kappa, be more of a threat to the enemies because they're going to take more damage and more poke if they let it hit them, which means that they probably have to turn to use an ability or to auto attack him or something like that. So not only does he do more damage, he'll probably end up eating more damage because people will be less willing to just let him live and, you know, just wail on him. So pretty good change. And then Shell Spikes increase the cooldown reduction on Nene Kappa hit from 0.2 to 0.6 to 0.5 to 1.3. So basically, when you activated Shell Spikes, if you would get hit in, if people would throw damage into your 2, it would reduce the cooldown on your 1. And now Now it just reduces it by even more, so you can really spam your 1, and then because your 1 does more damage, you can do a ton more damage, and you can also activate your 2 in CC. This makes Kuzenbo much more of a kind of like brawler, bruiserish type guardian. I think he is in a really good spot now. I don't think he's OP. I don't think he's trash. He's kind of just like, pretty strong. He's whatever. And if you get a lot of farm onto him, you get him really far ahead. He's a huge pain in the ass to deal with. So I think something like a soul laner Kuzenbo maybe could make sense. I don't see him as much in the support role, but it'll be interesting to see people try out Kuzenbo and see where he kind of falls for those of you who watch the SPL. I don't think he'll be available after the bye week in week 5, but maybe week 6 you'll see him. I'm not sure about that, but then certainly at lands he'll be available. So should be interesting to see how he does. Naja updated description to accurately state how much damage his ability deals. Basically no change. So this change is interesting. So healing as a mechanic in SMITE was additive. So what that means is, say you had a god like, we'll use Osiris because he's on the screen. They applied this to Odin, Serket, and Osiris, as you can see at the top. But since healing is additive, what that means is that if you were playing Serket and you use your ult on a Ra, then the Ra would have 100% healing reduction, but that doesn't mean that it just prevents all healing. So for example, if they bought a Rod of Asclepius and the Rod of Asclepius was giving them 10% more healing, then it would be base healing minus 100 plus 10, so they would still do 10% healing. It wouldn't just all be reduced. They have now changed it so that both Osiris and Serket, whenever they ult you, it will prevent all healing, no matter if you have Rod of Asclepius or other effects like that. You will just not be able to heal in their ult. It makes them a lot stronger as a counter pick. Serket was already pretty strong. This makes Osiris much better against late game healers like a Ra, like a Hell, like Afro, all those healers, whatever. Sylvanas, Vamana, that type of stuff. Hercules, it makes him a little bit better in those matchups. So you might see Osiris a little bit more. I think he's the only one that really got changed by this. Odin was already doing this. He already prevented all healing. But Serket and Osiris get the full benefit of preventing all healing. And Osiris was also buffed in either patch 4.3 or 4.2 as well. So, anyways, pretty good changes. Good stuff. Ra, Solar Blessing, fixed description. Not saying to provide protection. It's just tooltip. Sylvanas gets a little bit nerfed. So, Sylvanas has been one of the highest prioritized supports all of Season 4. And the reason he gets picked is because he gives you pressure. And I guess their response to this was to increase the cooldown on his 1 to make it have a higher cooldown at base, and then it would go down to its normal cooldown at rank 5. So overall, Sylvanas is still really strong. The goal of picking Sylvanas is to get pressure. He still gets you the pressure. It's just he'll snowball it a little bit less with this change because he won't be able to spam his 1 as much. The main notable thing about this is it means you can't clear the jungle as quickly as you would normally. I mean, 4 seconds, you could just spam this thing in lane and on creeps and just really clear even quicker, even though your auto attacks were AoE. This does incentivize you to max the 1 a little bit more. So basically, the 1 had a damage buff in Season 3, and then at the start of Season 4, a protection shred was added onto the 1, so you would reduce enemy protections when you hit them with your 1. And now they've made it so that the cooldown scales down as you max it. So there's a lot of incentives to start putting points into the 1 instead of the 2, which is his heal. I think you would still do it into the heal, but it's not out of question to do the 1. And if you're a Sylvanas player and you are leveling his abilities, you should never put points into your ult as long as your 1 and your 2 still have points available, in my opinion, because the damage on the ult is like 50 damage per rank, and now that you get cooldown reduction on your 1, or you like have to get the cooldown reduced on your 1, and then you also have protection shred or increase on your 1 and your 2. Definitely way better to max his 1 and his 2 over his ult, but anyways, kind of ranting a little bit. Moving on, Shablanque, branching bolas, reduce mana cost. This helps him in the early game a lot. His clear is way more affordable. He doesn't have to worry about spamming his 1 as much. This actually makes it free if you have Death Toll at rank 1, because you'll throw the bola and it'll subtract 3 mana from you for using the branching bola, and then it'll hit an enemy, and it'll give you 3 mana back from Dust Toll. So in the early game, this actually makes his Branching Bullets free. So pretty good thing to note there. It helps his early game clear a lot. And then Rising Jaguar, a little bit more physical power scaling, a little bit more bonus damage on the Poison Darts. Gives him a little bit more of an ability combo. Overall, pretty good changes to Xbalanque. I don't know if this makes him a lot better. The change that would really matter is 1. If this makes him have good early clear, then you'll see Xbalanque a lot more. If it ends up not mattering, then, oh well, no more Xbalanque still. Zeus, Aegis Assault decreased. Initial hit damage from 80 to 260. From 260 to 240, so 20 damage at all ranks is his nerf. This may not seem like a big deal, because it isn't. I'm just kind of trolling. It is kind of a big deal. So, in the early game, it takes 1 or 2 more auto attacks to clear the wave. That actually is a pretty big deal. It makes his clear speed a little bit slower. Zeus was getting picked a lot because he had good early game pressure, and he does a fuck ton of damage. Now he won't do as much, or he won't clear as quickly. He still has insane damage. He's still a really strong pick. You know, it's a Zeus. Normal stuff. Zhonghui. So Zhonghui was getting teased for this patch. He gets a couple changes. So first off, Expose Evil. This is his card. So he actually has a change on each ability. That's kind of crazy. Increase the remaining damage dealt from 40 to 75% when Expose Evil is removed by Exorcism or Book of the Demon. So basically, the way Zhonghui's kit would work is you would card people with your 1, and then you can rip it off with your 2, which will give you stacks for your passive and heal you, or you could rip it off with your 3, and this would stun them. So basically, the way it works is the 1 is a dot damage, and you would lose all of your damage if it didn't do this part where it increased the remaining damage dealt. So basically, you throw your 1 onto them, and say you won, and then you instantly use your 2 right after, then you would get burst damage from your 1 for a percentage of the damage that was left over from it, and then that's the damage that went from 40 to 75%, if that makes sense. I try to explain that well, but it's kind of hard to explain because I'm a pleb. Anyways, 35% more damage is pretty good on his 1. It says the same for his 3, but it was actually already doing this. That's why it says updated tooltip. So a little bit more burst damage when you use your 1-2 combo, assuming you didn't get every tick of your 1 off. This change is actually pretty big. Exorcism reduced the time it takes for the demons created by Exorcism to reach Zhonghui and heal him. So if you use your 1 and then you use your 2, the little demons would kind of fly out of the creeps and then travel to you. This travel time is now shorter, so you get your heal quicker and you get your passive stacks quicker. Nice quality of life change. Helps him a little bit. I don't think it makes him any better or worse. I mean, it makes him better, but like as terms of like viability and playing him. And then Recall Demons increase the travel speed of demons released by Recall Demons. This is a weird change. This is actually a nerf in some cases because I'm actually not sure what the reason for this change was, because if you Aegis, this means that you can potentially Aegis more damage. So the Aegis will last the same amount of time. So if you Aegis right as a ghost is about to hit you, it won't really matter too much. Like, you should still be taking the same amount of ghosts and still be immune in the same amount. Where this matters is like if you're in the middle of a team fight and Zhonghui pops his ult and then you're taking burst damage from other gods as well, then you would be able to, like, what would happen is you would Aegis a lot of the damage from other gods in the fight, and then you would run out of the fight, and because the demons took so long to travel, they would end up getting to you by the end of the Aegis, and maybe you get killed after the fact, and you just get chased down by the demons. But now that they go in faster, there's a chance that, like, you Aegis all of Zhonghui's teammates' damage, and then you also Aegis his damage more than you would have in the past because it has an increased travel time. So this is not just a flat buff. This can be a nerf if they have Aegis, or maybe into a shell, it could be considered a nerf. Anyways, I don't think these changes really make Zhonghui that much better. It's kind of like quality of life changes, but he's still in the same spot. He has bad early game clear. His team fight isn't that good still because he's not mobile, or not mobile enough. He doesn't counter the immobile gods hard enough. He's supposed to be punishing people that eat the whole damage of his ult, but I don't think he does enough damage right now to really make that happen, and it's really hard for him to get out of the early and the mid game because his clear is so bad. The 1 change does help his clear a little bit, but I mean, it's such a small amount in the early game because you normally let your card tick before you rip it off. Anyways, that's the patch notes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Give me feedback in the comments for anything I could have done better. Overall impressions of the patch, pretty cool. The best part about the patch is absolutely the new god. Go ahead and try him on PTS. He's got a really unique kit. Got a little bit too much CC for my liking on a hunter, but pretty sick overall. And that's all. I will see you guys later. Peace.